Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Double Down, the live online news and affairs programme that puts people first. It's Thursday, the 10th of December 2020. I'm broadcasting live from Dundalk and Dublin, and I'm your host, Finbar Markey. They say that a week is a long time in politics, and it's certainly been a long and a hectic week for Jackie Fox and her fellow campaigners for Coco's Law. You may recall that this night last week, Jackie was on the show, and to be honest, she was devastated on receiving news that new laws to tackle online bullying that she thought and she had campaigned for and she thought was going to be named after Coco's Law was not, in fact, going to be named after Coco's Law. Well, Jackie and campaigners from March for Justice have had one hell of a whirlwind campaign over the last week and have turned the tables completely on that government position. We are joined by Jackie and Trevor Conlon from March for Justice tonight, and we're going to talk about what happened over the last week, meeting with ministers, including Helen McEntee, the Minister for Justice, and how they turned the tables on that decision from last week. Before we join Jackie and Trevor, I'd like to spend a few minutes just talking about the recent National Assembly elections in Venezuela. Venezuela has once more had democratic elections, and once more the EU and the United States have declared those elections null and void and said that they were fraudulent. This is nothing new for Venezuela, a country whose economy is in free fall at the moment because of EU and United States embargoes and sanctions on their vital oil industry. People are dying in Venezuela. There's absolute turmoil. But despite this, the ruling government party, led by Victor Maduro, has again won the National Assembly elections. If you'd like to just for a minute, Stephen, bring in, if you don't mind, a video from the EU High Commissioner for Foreign Affairs and what he had to say about the Venezuelan elections this week.
In Venezuela, we have just issued a statement about the legislative elections that took place yesterday. And as expected, we have already said it, evaluating the well these elections were planned, not to be able to consider them free, fair, or democratic, and that the result doesn't represent the will of the Venezuelan people. This has gone ahead of a national agreement on electoral conditions, failed to comply with the minimum international standards, and failed also to mobilize the Venezuelan people to participate.
Now, there are a number of allegations that have been made there by the High Commissioner on Foreign Affairs for the EU. First of all, they say that, or the last thing he said, in fact, was that the Venezuelan government failed to mobilize the population to vote. 34% of the population voted in these elections this week. When we recall that less than that voted in recent Romanian elections, and 7 other EU states have had 30% or less turnout in recent elections. Venezuela has had 25 elections and referendums in the last 21 years. Every single one of them have been observed by international observers, and their outcomes have been that the elections have been fair and that they in fact, uber fair, if you want to put it that way. They've got one of the most sophisticated election systems in the world to stop election fraud. Claire Daly has been in Venezuela over the last week, and the MEP from Dublin, and she has been one of the international observers at the Venezuela elections. And this is what she had to say about them. Contrary to Western media narrative, the elections did not take place without the participation of the opposition. In fact, these National Assembly elections were a constitutional requirement and followed dialogue and involvement with most of the opposition parties, including some of those who had previously supported the puppet self-proclaimed president, Juan Guaido. Several changes were made to increase the number of seats to 277. Over 14,000 candidates participated in the vote from 94% of the country's political parties. These were fair elections, but this is again an example of when a country or a nation decides to self-determine, to rid themselves of the shackles of colonialism and direct their own future. When this future that they envisage does not suit the Americans and the EU in terms of attitudes towards, for instance, social change. That's when countries come under pressure. And Venezuela has been under severe economic embargoes and sanctions by the United States and the EU now since 2017. People are starving in Venezuela. And this is an attempt to destabilize the government and to turn the people against the government and have a civil war in Venezuela. There have been 3 or maybe even 4 coup attempts in the last 3 years in that country. In terms of the suffering of the Venezuelan people because of what the EU, and that's our government included, and the United States are doing to Venezuela at the moment because they are a democratic country and because they won't be led by the nose by anybody, a report has come out only in the last few weeks about the impact of sanctions on the people of Venezuela. The report says that between 2017 and 2018, 40,000 people have died as a result of the sanctions in Venezuela. We have a video clip of sorry, I think he's actually a doctor. Just bear with me. Dr. Mark Westbrook, co-director of the Center of Economic Policy Research, and he's talking about the sanctions in Venezuela and the impact on the people. Would you have that clip there, please, Stephen?
Your original report says that mortality rates increased significantly after the August 2017 sanctions, and that based on this, one can calculate approximately 40,000 additional deaths due to the mortality increase and the sanctions. Now, Hausman and his colleagues say that you cannot rule out that the mortality rates would not have increased anyway without sanctions, given the deterioration of the country's health infrastructure. What's your response to this?
Well, they're just pointing out the basic problem you have in social science. You don't have an experiment where you're manipulating the independent variable. But yeah, that's true everywhere. But if something happens and there's an obvious causal mechanism, you can see the imports are being cut off. These are imports that are used to import medicine and medical supplies and infrastructure for water and health and sanitation. And so, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you would expect. And you saw the increase in mortality. So this is something that, and of course, it could very easily be an underestimate because, first of all, the economy could have recovered, in which case the mortality rate would have gone down instead of up. It could be underestimated for any number of other reasons as well. And for example, it doesn't count the last few months of 2017, and it doesn't count, and of course, it's not going past the end of 2018, and the January sanctions were much worse. So they really don't have an argument here at all.
Okay, so that's Mark Westbrook outlining the impact of sanctions by the EU and the United States on Venezuela. Next week, I'm delighted to say we're going to be joined by Claire Daly, MEP, who was in Venezuela observing on an international basis the elections over there, and she maintains that those elections were super fair compared to even elections that we may have here in Europe. So we're delighted we're going to have Claire on next week, and we're going to explore this subject matter very much, because although Venezuela seems very, very far away, it's EU policy, which means it's Irish policy. And at the moment, the Irish media are not talking about this. You wouldn't know that there were elections in Venezuela. You wouldn't know that there were people starving, and there's a long-standing attempt to have a coup d'etat against the democratic government in Venezuela. So I look forward to talking to Claire next week about that. Okay, folks. Now let's turn to my guest tonight, the warrior mother herself, Jackie Fox, and our trusted and ever-trusting sidekick, Trevor Conlon from March for Justice. Welcome back on the show, guys. It's been a wild week for you.
It has indeed, thank you.
But it's also been, I think, a bittersweet ending to that week for you, Jackie. You were on the show last week. You were, if you don't mind me saying, devastated last Thursday when you saw on social media that this law that you campaigned for, the Harassment, Harmful Communications and Related Offences Bill, as it's been called now, that you were told and promised was going to be called Coco's Law after Nicole, your daughter. You discovered online last Thursday this was not going to be the case. You didn't take it on the chin and sit down. You decided to have a campaign, and that campaign has come to conclusion at the end of this week. Can you tell me, first of all, Jackie, in terms of where you were at last Thursday, and where you're at now. Can you tell us that difference?
Oh, yeah, last Thursday it was just so devastating. It was like a huge tsunami had just knocked me right back to nearly the beginning. You know, I was all prepared, as you know, to say some exciting news, but yeah, it just after reading on Facebook that they were taking the name away, but in a week it's turned around so much with you know, with all the campaigning that we did, with press conferences, Zoom meetings, emails were going in every direction, and you know, constant working, and it's turned around so much to uh, really positive news and fantastic news, but also, as you said, it is still always going to be a bittersweet moment, but yeah, this, you know, we've achieved so much in the last week.
And we'll talk about what exactly those achievements have been. But last Thursday, you were on the show. You asked that Minister Helen McEntee's email address be put out live on the show, and that viewers, in a respectful way, contact the minister in relation to naming the new law Coco's Law. You got a phone call at 9 a.m. on the dot the following morning. Who was that call from?
From Helen McEntee's office, was that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, requesting to have a meeting with her. I had sent her a personal video of what it meant to me, and what you know, what it was like to get something, Coco's name pulled from underneath me. I had sent her a video, and she replied to me straight away saying that she was going to ring me, but it ended up then that she didn't ring me, that her secretary actually wanted to arrange a meeting with me.
Okay. And at the same time, you were pulling an amazing team together for March for Justice. You asked me to come on board as well to give a hand with different things. And between all of us, we worked our boots off over the last week, and we achieved. But the team for March for Justice, you know, I only came on board in relation to this in the last few weeks, but March for Justice has been with you from the beginning. Do you want to tell us how they've contributed to this?
Oh, hugely. Going back to the last year, is I felt that things weren't going as good as I thought they were, and I was starting to feel defeated and, you know, a bit run down. I felt like I was just hitting a brick wall, and March for Justice came in, and you know, they gave me a huge boost. The campaigning that they've done with me, they never stopped, even when I was, you know, having bad days, really bad days. You know, they kept me going. They said they'll never stop fighting or helping until we get Coco's law on the bill. But they've been just fantastic with marching and our talks, and you know, I know I only have to pick up the phone to them, and especially this week, and with yourself, it's just been outstanding. The work that they've done and are continuing to do, that, you know, they just help not only me, so many people, and they've helped along the way and will continue to help. But with my experience, you know, you know, they have been my lifesaver, you know, when I felt at the lowest, and they just
Yeah, and you're having team meetings, 3 Zoom meetings with the team a day over the last
yeah.
7 weeks. But finally, a meeting was arranged with Minister for Justice Helen McEntee for 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening. You asked me to attend that meeting with you, and Trevor Conlon, who's in the room, I'll pull you in a wee minute. Trevor was at that meeting as well, and it was I've never ever personally witnessed anything like that in my life. The power that came from you at that meeting. The meeting opened up. Would you like to tell the viewers in relation to the photographs that you put on the minister's table so that you could watch them and look at those photographs while you were talking to her?
Yeah, I did. I brought in just a few pictures of Nicole. One of them was a baby scan, you know, and as you know, Helen McEntee is in that position now. So the next picture was, you know, as Nicole as a baby, and then Nicole making her communion, and then on up, you know, and when she was a teenager. And then the last couple of pictures was very personal that I could not look at or would never look at, and that's when Nicole was laid out in the coffin. And yeah, you know, and I kept her focus even when we're talking about other things. I kept going back to the pictures, and she was, you know, she was looking at them. And I think the pictures have shown where she is at the moment, where her baby scan, on up to where it ended tragically for me. You know, it did make a huge impact on her in the meeting.
Yeah. And then the meeting opened up with the minister saying what she had pre-prepared to say to you. And you, if I recall correctly, you asked the minister if she knew in detail Nicole's story, and she said she thought she did, but she didn't really. You actually, in great detail, outlined Nicole's experiences of harassment and bullying in great detail. And at that stage, the minister was clearly affected by Nicole's story that you were telling her. Do you want to tell us how the minister was affected? There seems to be a bit of background noise there.
Yeah.
Any other guests on that you could maybe just be, we're picking up paper or something moving around. So go on, Jackie. How do you think the minister was affected by that, by Nicole's story when you told her?
Deeply affected, and I'll tell you why, because I did start off with saying, you know, about Nicole's story, and she said, yeah, and I said, tell me about her. And she did kind of struggle, you know, a bit on telling me about Nicole. And so I told her I'll tell you a bit about Nicole. And I did tell her about the physical abuse that she endured, and I told her the online abuse, whether it was the harassment, the stalking, and you know, everything that you know, the hate mail, everything that they told her to do before she died. And she actually, Helen McEntee, she got very emotional. She was brought to tears on more than one occasion, and I knew that they weren't crocodile tears, that she could feel. I could, you know, you could just tell in the room that she got so emotional about it, because and not only that, she had a personal tragedy herself, so she understood what the personal tragedy was, but to explain that losing a child under bullying circumstances, you know, was on a higher level, and you know, it did actually reduce her to tears a number of times.
Yeah. And Trevor, are you there, Trev? Trevor, can you hear us, Trevor?
Yeah, how are you doing, Finbar? How's things?
All good, Trevor. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you very much for your help all week as well. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Listen, I gained from it. It lifted my spirit as well. So I think we've all gained from it. Trevor, you were at the meeting with us with Minister for Justice Helen McEntee. Do you want to outline how you felt the minister responded to Jackie?
Yeah, I think basically when we started off, I don't think the minister knew very much about Nicole Fox at all. I don't think she knew much about it at all. But Jackie basically told the story of Nicole from start to finish, from when she was born, basically till the day that she took her life. And I think McEntee was just took back by it. She really was. I have to say, Jackie was very. She presented her case to McEntee very, very well. Yeah, we're delighted with the outcome. Jackie's delighted with the outcome. Again, Finbar, thank you to you, because you put a lot of work into this as well. Amazing what Jackie has achieved, what Jackie has done for the people of Ireland, for our children, our grandchildren growing up. It's like, we were on the Lewis home today, and I just kept saying it to her. I said, what you've done is just absolutely amazing. What more can we say about it? Like, it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And what do you think about the idea? And I'll ask Jackie this question in a minute. What do you think about the notion that if Jackie had not seen that Facebook post that had the Irish Independent story that it was not going to be called Coco's Law, where would we be if she hadn't accidentally come across that?
Well, I think the campaign would have been all over the place. We wouldn't have stopped anyway. We would have took to the streets again and took to the government buildings and asked them. But in all fairness, they should have had the decency to contact Jackie or contact the team and let them know what was going on. But they didn't. And fair play to Jackie spotted it. She spotted it online and she got onto it straight away. And we just put an action in place immediately. Now, we had a serious campaign ready to go in case McEntee decided not to go in the direction that she did. So we let her know this at the meeting when we were speaking to her that we're not stopping, we're not going to give up, that this is not just about me, you, Jackie, this is about the nation, it's about all our children. The bullying is just completely out of control, and this law needs to come in. This needs to stop. The amount of text messages that we get in the March for Justice week in, week out. And I was talking to Jackie again today there about it on the way home, and she was saying the amount of messages she gets every day. It's really bad. Like, people have no idea how bad it actually is. It's really bad. So what we've achieved today, or what we've all achieved today, you can be guaranteed there's a hell of a lot of people sitting down tonight in their house with a lot of pressure taken off the top of their heads that's being bullied. And a lot of, if you look at the comments on the March for Justice page, you'll see it's a lot of parents that's actually commenting about their children. So all I can say is, look, hats off to Jackie. Thank you, Jackie, for trusting in us and all of us to help you out with this. And look, we've done it. We've all done it together. Well done.
Trevor, I want to come back to you in a minute about citizens' activism itself and the example that was set out this morning. But I'd like to go back to Jackie just for a minute to talk about exactly what was achieved in this week, but also what's been achieved over the last 3 years or so since Nicole passed away. The law itself, it's all encompassing. You have so often spoke about your frustration that you did everything you could in relation to the bullying that Nicole was going through, not just online but offline. In relation to online bullying, even when Nicole came off her social media and things like that, they were still doing it, and she was hearing these things that were happening about her and online and things like this, and that there was no law there. There's a law there, and it's going to be out tomorrow, enacted tomorrow. And so from the point of view of that long few years of work, that's been achieved. But what has been achieved in the last week with the meetings with the minister and her advisors? I believe that there is a memorandum, which you're going to read out to us now, a memorandum of explanation that will always accompany this legislation that refers to Coco and the campaign, and that will immortalise Coco in the statute books in Ireland. And it is about memorising Coco and the work of Jackie in relation to Coco's Law, but it's also so that people in this country will understand what the law is about, that it'll make sense to them, that it's not a big, long, harassment, harmful communications and related to offence bill, that it's Coco's Law. That's what it is. Everybody knows Coco and Nicole's story. So that's why that was important to have that memorandum. And secondly, there has been commitment to ring-fence funding for a foundation named after Nicole to educate and to research and to educate young people right across the country into the future on the prevention of bullying and harassment, both online and offline. Let's look at the first thing, the memorandum, Jackie. You're happy with the memorandum?
I am. I'm very happy with it. And if when the bill comes out, it doesn't matter if you type up the harassment, harmful communication related act. Yeah, if you look up Coco's Law or Nicole Fox, it'll all lead into one anyway. So you don't have to search the full name. But in the memorandum is the content of this bill is strongly influenced by persons who have lost their lives because of online harmful communications, in particular Nicole Fox. The bill is in recognition of her mother's determination to honour the memory of her daughter and to strengthen the law so that it can be safer. As a result, this bill can be referred as Coco's Law.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that will accompany every time somebody goes to look at that law, that's the first thing they see. Every time a student goes to study law, whether it's in social work, social care, nursing, or any of the social fields, when they go to, and they will have to look at Coco's Law, when they look at it, that's what they're going to see first. It's phenomenal. It's historic from the point of view of achieving and having that memorandum put on.
And that's what I wanted, Finbar. That's her legacy.
Yeah.
That I wanted her legacy to live on, and that is her legacy. As I said, the last line. As a result, this bill can be referred to as Coco's Law, and that's what I aim to achieve when I first started out, was to have her legacy referred to as Coco's Law, and that's what's going to be in it. So
you thought that was lost last Thursday, and look.
Oh yeah.
You know, the second thing that you've achieved, and as phenomenal and as important, because you did say to me the other day that it's also the key to this is education. Again, you've spent the last few years going around to you must have been in every school in the country by now.
Not quite. Mostly.
You know, you're as familiar as Santa Claus almost.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about your reaction that you get in the schools in a minute or two. But just talking about this idea of a Nicole Fox Foundation or a Nicole Coco Fox Foundation, what does that mean to you?
Do you know, it's an extra bonus. Right, I've got a legacy in the law, and now it's an extra bonus that I didn't that I wasn't expecting. You know, Nicole Fox Foundation. You know, even saying the words is just
sweet music.
It's huge, you know, and it's this foundation. It's like an educational program that's going to help so many people. You know, it's even just it's just overwhelming. You know, I can't even find the words of you know, having a Nicole Fox Foundation and to help so many people learn more about what Coco's Law is, you know, and what can cause the devastation and online bullying can cause, but just to have her own foundation is just mind blown, and especially when I didn't expect it, you know.
Yeah,
that was a huge bonus.
And you've been going around, you've been doing it anyway on your own, pocket for the last few years. You have been going to schools. What kind of response do you get at schools from Kerry? Like, I give the people an example. Communicating with you over the last week, you were flying down to Kerry, going to a couple of schools in Kerry, getting home, going to a meeting with the Minister for Justice, going and doing a press conference, doing it all in one day.
Yeah.
So, but when you go to the schools, what kind of a response do you get, irrespective of whether it's Kerry or Dublin or?
In each and every school that I've went to, you don't hear a pin drop, and they're so fixated on what I'm saying. I don't just go in and talk about the story. I do play a drama before, you know, before I start, to give them an insight of what I'm talking about, and then I talk about what happened, you know, then what I was fighting for, you know, the devastation of the effects of suicide. There's tears, not only from the girls, but from the boys as well. You know, you don't hear a pin drop. And I remember getting a message of the Let's Bring Coco's Law page of one of many students, but one of the students actually said that she couldn't thank me enough for doing a talk, and she said herself and her friends left different people when they left that room. You know, it opens up so many people's minds on. A lot of people do you know, slag each other, messing online, you know, and they don't realize that they don't know what's going on inside people's heads. They don't know if they're going through mental health issues. They don't know what's going on at home, and you know, they think having a laugh or a joke, you know, and that's fine. But you know, when I explain what can happen and how it can go too far, and I just say what gives anyone the right anyone the right at all to bully anyone. You know, honestly, I don't ask to go to schools. The schools come to me, and that's from the reviews that I get from the teachers who sit in with the talk. So as I said, I get the schools coming to me, because of the impact of the talk that I do has such an effect on the kids.
Are you going to stop?
Stop? No, absolutely not. No, definitely not. You know, especially not now because you know, I was always saying at the end, like, oh, Coco's Law should be in soon. We should get this. We should get this. Now we're getting it. Now we have it. So, no, I can't. I have a talk in Finglas tomorrow in a school, and I'm actually looking forward to it because I can't wait to say, like, we have Coco's Law. You know, that it is going to be in place. It is there, and tell them the consequences, you know, about bullying and what'll happen.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the bullies themselves, and this is just a question off the top of my head, do you think that something needs? We're quite often in our education, we direct our education to the victims of bullying. Do you think that the bullies themselves need to be spoken to too about this, and to try to prevent it with them as well? You know, often it's you know, we talk to victims about how to respond and how to react and who to contact and things like that. But the bullies themselves, do you think they need some kind of an educational program themselves? You were saying earlier that it happens online and sometimes people don't realize how people feel about these things.
Not in every case. Some people mightn't realize what they're doing, but a lot of people do. You know, you can kind of go by the ages, you know, if you're 12, 13, 14 or whatever. Yeah, they mightn't realize, but a lot of adults are bullying online, and yes, they most definitely know what they're doing.
So the educational program is really for those people who may not realize what they're at, but the law is there for people who do know what they're doing.
Yeah, and when I talk in the schools, I always say, for those who are being bullied, you know, I give them the advice of what they should do, but I also aim at the bullies in the class, and I'd say if there's any bullies in this class, or you know of anyone who's been a bully, I always give the advice of well, first I say stop it now, and give the advice of how they would feel after bullying someone, or after, you know, bullying someone so bad, how they would feel when the teacher sits them down on a Monday morning and say so and so has had to take their life because of bullying online. You know, I'm trying to educate them what bullying can do to people. So when I do the talk, it's not only about Cole. I aim at the victims, but I also give a real stern talk to the bullies. But the adults that do it, yeah, you know, there's a difference between the adults and the kids in the school, you know.
I suppose essentially, without sounding in any way fancy, they should have more cop on.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, they should have more sense. And not everyone, and I know this from experience, not everyone that bullies people were bullied themselves. You know, sometimes you hear it said, oh, well, you know, you have to think they were bullied themselves. Nicole's bullies, we're not bullied. I know their families. Do you know what I mean? I know who they were. You know, not everyone that bullies is fighting back from a time when they were bullied. It's a lot of it, especially with online and the apps and what's out now. A lot of it is how to be popular, or jealousy, or how many likes we get, or how many shares we get. You know, it's all competition and competing with each other. You know, not every bully has been bullied. It's about popularity as well.
Yeah. And please God, the Coles Box Foundation is going to address a lot of that into the future. Can I just turn around to Trevor for a little bit? Are you still there, Trev?
Yeah, how are you doing, Finbar?
I know the pressure because you're doing a homeless food run at the moment and you want to get away to
I have it now. I collected it there now, so we're done.
Oh, brilliant. Just a couple of questions in terms of the I described, we had you on the show before, Trevor, and I described March for Justice as more than just an advocacy, a human rights advocacy group, but it's almost an empowerment group that to try to empower people to learn how to campaign for themselves and things like that. Over the last week, I described it at the beginning of the show as a masterclass in citizens activism, what happened over the last week. Could you tell us just, and I know we did touch upon some of it, briefly again, the steps that you guys, or we I suppose, took over the last week to move a mountain in the last week? And could you then maybe just talk to us about your experiences of how, when people become empowered, how they can achieve great things, even though they may feel like small mice themselves? Could you just talk to that for a minute?
Yeah, no problem, Finbar. Well, basically, when last week when we got the news that they weren't going to call it Coco's Law, straight away, this is something that the government do a hell of a lot. They come in and they basically shut down what you want and what you're fighting for. But that doesn't mean it's all over. That just means the fight began. So then what you have to do, you have to get back out there and go back to them with different views, different ways of bringing this law in, and it's the same with every single campaign out there. People just, I think people give up too easily, way too easily. The government is there. Don't forget, they're there because we put them there. Well, not this one, but anyway, normally they're there because we put them there, and they're there to help you and to act for the people. Like, so it's up to you. If they get away with just sitting in their ass and doing nothing all the time, well, they will do it. So it's up to us to rise, to get there, to challenge them on all this type of stuff. Now, I'm not saying go in there and cause trouble. That'll get you nowhere. Do it properly. Go into the Dáil, sit with them, talk to them, tell them what you want done, what ways there is. There's better ways of doing things. I'll give you for instance, we have other cases there that we're dealing with at the moment that we don't put into the social media. And a couple of them cases in the last week as well has actually come up and come through. So it's persistence, being persistent with things. Keep on the case, keep on their case. Just keep pushing forward. Never give up. Never. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if you think it's over. It ain't over. It ain't over. You just keep on fighting and fighting. And at the moment, we can see so many different things happening in Ireland that we're not happy with. Now, at the moment, we have COVID-19 holding us back from doing things, but you can still do it all online. Do it through Zoom meetings. Prepare. Get yourself involved in things. Get prepared. Get ready, because as soon as all this is lifted, we need to take to the streets. We need to take to the government again and tell them what we're not happy with. And there's so much at the moment that we're not happy with, and we all will get back on the streets, and we all will get to the government. And look, it's possible to change things. It is possible to change things. You just have to be persistent and keep going, but go the right way. No violence. You don't need violence. Violence is not going to get you anywhere. They're just not going to even listen to you. You just need to do it the right way and get to the Dáil, get inside, talk to them. Give them just because they say this is the way it has to be. That's not just because they say it. We have to get there and we have to say to them, look, there is other ways around this where everyone can be happy. So you know yourself, Finbar. We've been out a long time. Like, we've been out a long time against a lot of different stuff. I do think we need a big mobilization of people on the streets for the homeless issue, because it's just getting out of hand. I've said this before. We won't go off too far off, but I said this before. We haven't got a housing problem. We have the houses. We have the homeless to go into the houses. We have a government problem. So we need to all put together and come together and work this problem out, and then bring it to the government and say to them, look, this is the way forward with this. So we are working on something like that at the moment with that as well.
Yeah. And there was
just never give up, Finbar. Just never give up.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed about the last week as well that was very impressive was how the March for Justice team and Jackie worked together, and these were very innovative. Because of COVID-19 and because of the very short time frame, you wanted to let the world know what was happening. So you called a a Zoom press conference and just contacted as many members of the press as possible and just had a very good Zoom online press conference and were as innovative as you possibly could have been. So there was a lot about being organised and thinking outside the box, I think, in relation to campaigning like this and getting a good team around you. Would you agree with that?
I would, Finbar, 100%. Yeah, we have a very, very good team there of lads. Don't forget, most of the March for Justice team have been protesting the past 10 years. And that's when we came together and decided that enough getting the Lewis into town, screaming at an empty wall and going back home. It was enough of that. We needed to sit down and put things into order and get the proper strategy to go back and hit the government with. And so far, we are having a number of different campaigns in the length of time that we're out. And we've achieved a hell of a lot. So we can see that it actually works. See, you can take to the street and you can have 10, maybe 15, 20, 25 people on the street. Social media is actually very good. We have a few views there that has reached 70,000 views. So that's 70,000 people looking in at what you're doing, and it's very good because a lot of them people then are getting involved in it and they're texting you and they're actually starting up Zoom meetings with their friends and colleagues. And it is definitely the way forward. It's not over just because you can't stand on the street. Definitely not. You can still do all this online. Online is very, very powerful if it's used properly. It's very dangerous if it's used wrong. As we know, that's why we're fighting this campaign for Jackie. But if it's used properly, it is actually a very, very powerful tool and very good tool, as you know yourself.
Yeah, you can reach a lot more. I think one of the reasons that we come up with this program was because of COVID-19, the inability of people to campaign. But what I'm finding is campaigns are actually becoming more pinpointed and successful because they're learning new online skills. Can I jump back to Jackie for a minute, folks? Are you still there, Jackie?
Yeah.
We're nearly finished. I know you want to get to bed and maybe you might be popping a bottle of wine before you do that. You never know. Just a couple of last questions, Jackie. In terms of this week, and how at the end the naming issue of Coco's Law was handled. If somebody else was going through this again and you were advising the government, how would you advise them to handle this better about the naming aspect of things over the last few weeks?
What you mean, like?
Well, you know, for instance, how they communicated or didn't communicate, which are things like that. Would you have some kind advisory words for the government in the future when they're dealing with mothers like yourself?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not to let them find out on Facebook. You know, when they do something, you know, they should, you know, if mothers are campaigning the way I am, you know, they have to communicate with them 100% and keep them in the loop. I wasn't kept in the loop. All the way up, I thought everything was fine, as you know, and things were pulled out from underneath me. It's, you know, they have to, you know, keep up meetings with them, keep them in the loop, and help them understand, because we don't know. I didn't know anything about the government or what they were thinking or what way they were going. You know, so they have to, you know, if you are campaigning for something like that, they should be keeping you in touch more, or being honest, or sending you emails, or definitely not to find out things on Facebook.
Okay. And in terms of what you're going to do over the next couple of weeks, are you going to relax for a while before you get stuck back into the school calendar and things like that?
Probably not. I'm just trained to be a facilitator for HUG, and that's the bereavement through suicide only group, and which I was a member of after losing the cold. But now I'm a facilitator, so I'm going to be starting my new group in January, the new HUG group in January in Wexford. First of all, before Christmas, I'll be doing Tala, but then I'll be opening up my own HUG group in January. So that's going to keep me going. And Finbar, if you don't mind, can I just say I'm glad things didn't go my way this week. And I know that might sound crazy, because when you heard me last week, sobbing my eyes out to you. But if things went my way this week and Coco's name was just put on the heading, I wouldn't have gotten the extra things that I would have got, and the memorandum, and all stuff like that. So it actually, even though it was a hectic mental week, it actually turned out a lot better. So I'm actually glad it didn't. In the end, it didn't go my way, and as I said, there's we have further discussions ahead with the minister on about other positive things and events that are going to that are related to Coco's law. So I wouldn't have gotten all this if they had to just put our name in the heading. So I wasn't saying that last week, and I wasn't saying that all through the week, but now today it actually worked out a lot better than I ever imagined. So yeah, they actually did me a favour.
I think you fought so hard at that meeting with the minister, and you did so well. I think if you had have asked for 100 million euros, a tank, and an aeroplane, I think you would have got it at that meeting too.
Probably, yeah. It was a really powerful meeting, and that just went their way, and delighted with it.
Yeah. One final question before we go. There has to be an upcoming movie about the campaign and about Jackie Fox and the campaign for Nicole and Coco's Law. Who's going to play Jackie Fox in the movie?
Trevor, you answer that.
Piper. I'm so
there's only one Jackie Fox. No one else could ever play Jackie Fox. There's only one Jackie Fox, and we owe her a lot of gratitude for what she's after doing for this country and this nation. That's the truth.
And there's a from when I started, from the rawest day, there's a filmmaker, Jared Walsh, has been filming me all the way from the very start, even up to now. When he filmed in Nicole's room and all our private stuff, and from the rawest interview right up to now. He's been amazing. So he has a documentary coming out about Nicole and the experience of the work that has been done all the way up. So that's going to be huge as well. And that's another huge thing that Nicole is going to be helping other people with as well.
Yeah, I just don't know where you're going to get the time, Jackie.
I know.
You need to maybe take a few days or even a couple of weeks to relax. Guys, that's all we have. I really want you guys back to inform me of where this is going, find out whether the Minister for Justice has kept her commitments into the future. I expect that you will, but if she doesn't, you will always have a space here to tell the public and also to build up a campaign if necessary into the future. Jackie Fox, Trevor Conlon from March for Justice. Again, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll talk to you over the coming weeks and months.
Thank you.
Can we just say a big thank you to someone there, Finbar, can I?
Go on ahead, Trevor, yeah.
Yeah, we'd just like to say a big thank you as well to Mary Sheehan and Aisling O'Neill. They're the other two mothers that is from Limerick, and Dave came around the whole lot of the country with us as well, with Jackie Fox. And we'd just like to say thank you to them as well for their help as well. And the whole team of March for Justice and Jackie Fox, and especially yourself, Finbar, in the last 2 weeks, the stuff that you've done, and thank you so much from all of us.
Well, I just have to say that as I said before, I have gained from it. And I've met some wonderful people in the process as well. Guys, I'll be talking to us over the next few months. Thanks for coming on the show again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Finbar.
Thanks, Doug.
That's almost the show for tonight, folks. We might be finishing on time. We normally run 15 or 20 minutes over, but because we were doing so much work for the campaign in the last couple of weeks, I'll be honest, I didn't have time to overly prepare for the show like I normally do. Before we go, I want to do a show coming into January or February, looking at the treatment of older people in our hospitals, and especially older people that are considered or deemed by the medical establishment to be coming towards end of life. If you have a relative, a loved one, a family member that you believe was sped towards the end of their lives unnecessarily within Irish hospitals, I want you to contact the show, contact Irish Inquiry, or contact myself via social media. We'll put up details later about that. And I want to talk to you and find out what your experiences have been. I'm hearing lots of stories about the abuse of older people, the starvation of older people, and the denial of medical assistance, as simple things like antibiotics, which are leading older people to die in a lot faster time than they may do so otherwise. I'm also getting a lot of reports in of people being pressurized into signing or agreeing to do not resuscitate orders. This is a serious issue. Older people and our children are some of the most vulnerable and most likely to be abused people in our society. Please contact us if you've had those experiences, if you're willing to share them. You don't necessarily have to come on the show yourself, but we'd like to gather up as many experiences as possible to have a special on that topic into the future. That's the end of the show for today, folks. Next week, we're going to have Claire Daly, MEP, on. She's going to be talking about her experience of being an independent international observer in the recent Venezuelan elections. And she's going to contradict and counter the narrative from the EU and the United States Secret Services, FBI, CIA on those elections. Join us next week. Have a safe week. I Hawaii Kharja.